Hey everyone, welcome back to the Homesteader's Classroom. So it's a really nice, cool spring day today, which is actually I'm quite thankful for because it's been getting hot. Um, I know that I've been growing more winter and early spring crops in my garden, and nature's just deciding that nope, I don't get to do that anymore. I live technically on the edge of Zone 7A, which means that I'm just close enough to zone 8 that temperature can be fickle. And I'm in Georgia and it's decided that it wants to get warm in Georgia. So I've found that a lot of the winter vegetables that I've been growing, some are more susceptible to the heat and they have started to bolt. So bolting is when a plant reaches a level of discomfort in which it starts freaking out and it's like, oh, I gotta reproduce really quickly. I need to produce seed, get those flowers out there so that I can continue my offspring on to the next generation because it thinks it's gonna die. So they're going through stress. And a lot of vegetables are either better for growing in a cooler season or a warmer season. I have very mild winters where I live, which can be good because it extends my summer growing season, but it can also cut my winter growing season short. And it started to do that here. We've gotten a lot of sun, a lot of warmth, and I found that just some of my crops have decided that they want to start going to seed. But that's okay. Because just because they're going to seed doesn't mean that they can't still be useful to me. And I didn't fail. Like, we can still try this again later and I can still harvest from some of these things. So I want to show you what I'm talking about. And also just my big garden bed's been getting way too filled with all those mustard greens and everything that's in there. It's time to cut back. It's time to start harvesting. And let's do with what we have. Okay, so I'm going to take you over there and show you. Okay, so I know you guys have gotten used to seeing my massive mustard greens. They've really done pretty well for themselves. I'm pretty happy with them. And I'm going to be going to visit my mom. I promised her that I'd bring her some. So we're going to pluck a couple of these leaves off to take to her. So with greens, they're pretty simple. All you have to do is make sure that you harvest from the bottom up. So you want to leave the new leaves at the center, even though some people say they taste better, but leave the new growing leaves there to grow and just pluck from the bottom. And you'll be surprised with how much you can get though from just using this tactic, whether it is that you're harvesting every day. If you have enough of them, you could harvest from them every day. I've only got 5 plants, but still, that's going to be more than enough to bring to my mom. So these are pretty easy to tear off the plant. I've been using shears, but you can use your hands if you want to. Just be delicate. If it doesn't want to come, switch to using a pair of shears. I did use my hands to pluck off these bottom leaves because they were, you can tell they're a little bit more yellow. They're a bit more damaged. They came off a lot easier. But I also want to just go ahead and take these bottom leaves. I'm not going to bring these to my mom, and I really am not going to eat them myself either since they're just a bit too damaged for me. So instead I'm going to just rip these guys up and add them to my garden bed. Now you could add them to your compost pile or what have you, but I'm just going to put these guys, kind of dig them in the soil and let the bugs have them. Let the earthworms have them. Just let them decompose and they'll add some nutrients back to my garden bed. I actually have a couple of dead leaves that are down here and they're just going to add more vivacity to your garden. So looky there, guys. I mean, you can actually see the soil underneath it. I've got my nice pile. I think that might be too much for just my mom. That's for me and her. But still, these mustard greens have so many leaves on them, and I left just enough to be able to keep growing, and they'll keep doing well until they're out of season. So to bring you back to some other items. So looky there. This is what I was talking about, bolting, and I showed y'all some images of it in other parts of my garden in the beginning of the video. Now these guys right here are actually radishes, and I just kind of threw radishes in last minute after planting my cabbages and my greens. I had some extra space. I wanted to see how well they would do. But now you can see they're kind of just all taking over and bolting, and I want to give the rest of my greens and cabbages a little bit more space. So I'm just going to go ahead and pluck them and see how they did. So I've got this guy right here. And woo, look at that giant radish right there. I mean, that's a stunner. Oh well, so y'all, I'm going to take a second to get rid of some of these radishes. So look at that harvest of radishes. Now, if y'all can tell, I'm being extremely sarcastic. This is definitely not what you want when you're growing a radish. Now, these are still edible per se. Like, you can tear them off and cut this root up, but it's going to be really stringy. I know this because I tried eating one already. But it's really stringy in the middle. It's just not that good for eating. So, you know, they didn't grow the way I wanted them to. But it was just an experiment. And I learned a lot from this experiment. We'll cover what I learned. But this would be something that'd be great to throw into a compost pile, feed it to your worms, whatever have you. I did leave some in the box. And the only reason why I left some in the box is actually because of these pretty flowers. So, the good thing about it when your plants bolt is that they're giving you that second chance. They're going to produce seeds. And if you want, you can collect the seeds and save them for next year and try again. I don't know if I'm going to keep these seeds exactly for these radishes because I have a whole bunch more still. But I want to keep these flowers here and let the rest of these radishes grow and produce flowers just for the bees, for the pollinators. I want to attract as many helpful, beneficial bugs to my garden as possible. This is to help create an ecosystem. This invites bugs. This invites birds. This is going to help my garden. So I pulled out a lot, as you saw, but I just left a couple to let them produce their flowers. As you can see, I still have some cabbages here. This purple one, it seems that the purple ones are doing better with the heat than the green ones are. You can see these green cabbages are bolting. The purple ones haven't yet. But you know what? That's okay, because you can still eat these leaves. I didn't get a cabbage head, but the only difference between what I have now with a head of cabbage and the leaves that I have now is that one's in a ball grouped together and then some are separate. Like, you can see that they were getting ready to head. They grow all their leaves and then they fold up over on top of each other and create that lovely ball that we see in the grocery store. But they're still cabbage leaves. If you want to, you can go ahead. If you notice that your plants are bolting and you still want to eat your cabbage, which is what I'm going to do, just pick that plant up, take all the leaves off. And you kind of want to do it before it gets a chance to fully bloom its flowers, because once plants bloom, they kind of send all their resources into reproducing at that point, into keeping that flower maintained and keeping those seeds maintained. And they lose their flavor as well. That's one of the reasons why I'm not going to be determined to eat those beets or the radishes or the radish greens. It's because they kind of lose their flavor when they bolt. So this one has started to bolt. I can still pluck that flower off right there. And again, I'm not so much worried about the cabbages because I have lots of seeds. And we've got a lot going on in the background. Sorry about that, guys. That's living near Atlanta for you. But yeah, eat these leaves. And then I'm going to show you too. So I've got these broccoli over here. These broccoli are in the same situation. So this one has already produced, oh, and there was a bee. See, the bees love it. This one's already produced its flowers. Oh, look at that little guy. And see how happy he makes that bee. That's why I keep the flowers. After the bee pollinates them, they're going to produce seeds. This specific plant might not be the best to eat. But you see this little guy right here? This is an unopened broccoli flower. And yes, it looks just like a thing of broccoli. If you want to, you can snip them off right here and eat that like regular broccoli, because that's what it is. It's broccoli. You can also consume these broccoli leaves right here. Use them like you would lettuce or kale. The smaller ones, of course, are going to be not as tough, and you could even throw them in a salad. The bigger ones, maybe use them for soup or braised greens instead, but this is edible. It's great. I still have down here these 2 broccoli plants that have not bolted, and I've tried putting them in the shade. I'm hoping that keeping them in the shade might make it to where they don't bolt. We'll see how that happens, but if it doesn't happen, these leaves look great. I can use them in a soup. It's going to be fine. So same with these guys. Now these were interesting. I know they're looking rather droopy right now. It's about to pour down rain here, and they'll get all the water they need, which is why I haven't given them water. And they're so big now that the pot they're in is not able to withstand them. But they're putting all their energy into making these beautiful yellow flowers that I see bees all over in the morning. These are some that I'm going to save. It's kind of a mixture of stir-fried greens, little baby stir-fried greens. I know you can't tell. I think this might be a turnip. I looked it up. I believe there are some form of baby turnip green. And then these guys down here, it's really hard to tell, but they're actually baby bok choy. So I'm just going to let them do their thing, and I plan on harvesting seeds. So same with these carrots, although these carrots are not bolted yet. But I did pick one up the other day to take a look at it. And you know, let's go ahead and take this guy right here. So if you push around a carrot, you can see if they're growing really well or not. And he's a little thin, but we're going to go ahead and pull him out because he's so small. So this is not the biggest carrot, but could I technically eat this? Yes. The only thing is this carrot's gone a little bit past its prime. As you can see, it has roots growing out of near the top too. Once your carrots start getting all of these little roots coming off of it, it's not going to taste as good. These guys I actually planted in the fall. Carrots don't take that, shouldn't be in the ground that long. If they're in the ground, they start producing more roots, and they focus on going into seed production. So even if I took these inside and uprooted all of them, even if they were big, they're just not going to taste as good. And I had some issues in my fall growing season, and you know what? That's okay. I still learned. So I'm actually going to let my carrots go to seed and collect them, because I used all of this specific carrot seed to plant. This was my second time planting these carrot seeds in here, because the first time they got ruined by the dog. And I'm sure you can tell there's a big old depression from these carrots that got ruined by the junior. But you know what? That's okay. We're going to wait for these to go to seed. And I intend on collecting the seeds from here. I'm going to collect the broccoli seeds. I'm going to collect the little baby green seeds. And it'll give me a chance to try again next year. Now these guys are really, really thickly sown. I honestly, after Junior kind of ravaged this box, I didn't have the heart in me to try wasting all my seeds again. I felt like I was doing something wrong. So we're going to let them go to seed as well. So even though a lot of my greens are starting to suffer, this kale right here is doing great. And kale tends to be something that can last a little bit longer in the heat as well. I don't expect my kale to start going to seed until probably about June. When you want to harvest kale, it's pretty easy. You just do it like the mustard greens, and you pull the bottom leaves. And especially when they're little like this, they can still taste pretty good. You can't just eat it right out, which I'm going to do. Tastes actually really good. So the great thing about kale is after it goes through a winter freeze, they taste sweeter. They can, of course, taste just fine in the summer, but if it goes through a freeze, which is what these do, they tend to taste a little bit sweeter. And of course, the little leaves are going to be better for eating hands-on versus the big leaves. I think I could use all of these leaves in a salad right now if I wanted to. But I'm going to wait for another day to harvest that because I got lots of mustard greens already. You guys, look at this big bouquet of mustard greens I just harvested. Like, there's so many that are there. They're beautiful. I'm so excited about it. I mean, I love the feeling that you get when you get to harvest your own food from the garden. It's just really something special. Yes, I got to harvest these mustard greens this time, but as you saw, there are some things in my garden that happened in my fall/winter garden that just didn't end up working out. And, you know, fair, I could be bummed about it, but I'm not going to be. You know, there are just so many things that I learned about a winter garden and a fall garden living in the area that I do. The first time I tried gardening for the fall and the winter, the only thing that I could get to grow was my kale, and it didn't successfully grow until April and May. So I've got it to start growing sooner, so that's great. I was able to grow mustard greens. I was able to grow cabbages. They might not exactly be to full cabbage head yet, but I can still eat that sucker. I was able to grow broccoli, again, not to the full what you buy in the grocery store, but I can still eat those broccoli greens. I grew lettuce this year. I learned so much more about more vegetables, even though I didn't bring them all the way. I didn't bring them to fruition. I got to learn so much about my soil and about what a plant exactly needs. And I know that if I'm still in this apartment the next winter growing season, the next fall growing season, I know so much more that I can then use to make that season better. And I learned so much more that I can make this spring and summer season better, especially about soil composition and how to make it better. And I really think that's what happened. Why I wasn't able to quite get all my plants there this year is that they just didn't have enough nutrients. I wasn't able to add enough into the soil soon enough to where they could get it and form before the heat came on. So I'm definitely going to try some new things for this summer season. I plan on putting some actual compost into it once I get all of my spring/fall/winter garden done. I'm definitely going to be amending the soil better, and I really believe that I'm going to have an insane summer growing season. And I was able to learn all that through my failures of the winter garden. It's just, don't take it to heart if, like me, you have things that just don't work out. You have time and time again, the seasons are constantly moving. I'm gonna have another winter growing season. You're going to have another winter growing season. Or if you start in the summer or the spring and it just doesn't go the way that you want, there's another season next year. Don't be discouraged. Keep on going, and then even if it doesn't turn out the way that you want it to, you can usually still find a way to eat your plants, or use them, and it allows you and encourages you to be creative with your garden, to be creative with the uses, and you'll discover new ways to use your plants or to use your garden that you never would have thought of before. So my point is, keep trying, don't get discouraged, and thanks for going through this with me. It's definitely a lot easier to fail, but fail with some people to help me. Hey y'all, I had one more thing to add, a little kitchen tidbit for these mustard greens that we just harvested, so let me show you real quick. Alright, so I've got my mustard greens that I just harvested, and I have this sink full of water. So what we're doing here is we're just making certain that there's no leftover bugs on our plants. This is something that, is a reality when you're trying to garden. You have to deal with bugs, especially if you're using organic pesticides or no pesticides. you need to make sure that there's nothing hiding in those crevices. So all you have to do is fill your sink up or a bowl, whatever have you, with water. Add some salt. I just have some kosher brining salt. Now you're going to want to let that dissolve. You can look up the specific ratios online, but yeah, just give it a little mix, let it dissolve. And then you go ahead and you put your greens in there. Now this will make all the bugs float to the surface. Another key thing is if you are using pesticides, please, please, please be careful and read the back of your bottle or your box and follow the instructions to a T. You do not want to consume pesticides. You could really hurt yourself. I only use neem oil in my garden for pesticides or diatomaceous earth, and they're not harmful for me to consume on accident, but it has even been a little while. So again, you just put all your greens in there, and this is gonna kill any leftover bugs, whether it be those aphids we were fighting off or what have you. It's just a nice practice to use. Also, if you have a situation where you harvested later in the day and your greens just aren't as sturdy, they're maybe a little bit limp, you can put them in water too to help them kind of rehydrate them before storing them, or as I'm doing, taking to my mom. So don't forget to clean your vegetables properly. And that was your little kitchen tidbit. Thank y'all for joining me today, and I hope you can join me for the next lesson. Bye.